Hi, my name is Abby Bardales. I am a candidate for the role of Dean of Students for the 22-23 school year. I'm currently an 8th grade English teacher at Aurora Science and Tech Middle School, and I also serve as our 8th grade house lead. Today I'm going to be talking about a challenge that I faced this year in that role as 8th grade house lead. The challenge that I faced this year was a concern around cultural consistency and alignment amongst our 8th grade teaching team. Around mid-September, we started to notice an increase in negative student behaviors in the classroom, and teachers were starting to cite a lot of difficulty with classroom management. Our classrooms were feeling less calm and focused, and students weren't able to engage as positively in their academic work. We were able to identify that what was at the root of all of these kind of increased behaviors was actually the fact that we weren't implementing with fidelity the culture systems that we had talked about at the start of the school year. Primarily, our school uses the no-nonsense nurturer, ladder, and cycle system in order to ensure students are getting fair and quick feedback on how they are behaving in class. We found that NNN ladder wasn't being implemented with fidelity, and so students were having really inconsistent experiences across their classes. I want to name a few circumstances that I think led up to this challenge. The first, and one of the biggest circumstances, was the return from COVID. As we've seen in schools across the country this year, coming off of a year and a half of online and hybrid learning has been really challenging for students to be able to re-engage in a more typical school setting. Additionally, the context of the AST founding class in particular is really important to consider. In their 6th grade year, the AST founding class was in a different building and experienced really high teacher turnover in the first half of their school year. Then, in the second half of their school year, COVID hit and they had to go online. Their 7th grade year was then that combination of online and hybrid school. So for many of our 8th graders, this year is actually the first year that they have been in this building as a whole class together. This has meant that students were just coming in a really different place than a lot of 8th graders typically would be. Additionally, we had a founding 8th grade teaching team this year with really varied levels of experience and experiences in different kinds of school. Our teaching team is made up of a combination of first-year teachers, teachers from other DSST schools, and teachers from schools outside of DSST. This meant that we had a really diverse team that was still figuring out kind of how to work together. One of the other factors here, I think, was the fact that we had a little bit of an extended honeymoon phase where these little behaviors started creeping up on us without us really noticing them or responding to them in the moment. This meant that we were seeing a gradual decline in the quality of our culture systems and classroom management, and we weren't immediately noticing the severity of the problem until we hit about mid-September when it became really evident that we were facing a significant challenge. When I faced this problem, I came up with a vision for what I wanted to be true for our 8th grade team. Most importantly, I wanted our students to have a really cohesive experience, where they had consistent expectations across their classrooms and clear expectations on how they were supposed to engage behaviorally in classes. I also wanted to make sure that we were holding our students to a high bar. They deserved to be held to a high bar both behaviorally and cognitively. And I wanted to make sure that our team had this belief that our kids can and will meet that bar. There was no reason for us to be lowering our expectations because our kids were capable of meeting the bar we had set. Additionally, I wanted to be really mindful of our teaching team morale. It's important that teachers feel a sense of joy and productivity and success at work. It's important that they are able to see that and see the payoff of their efforts so that they can be inspired to be the best teacher they can possibly be. At this point in time, our morale as a team was getting pretty low, and so it was important for me to consider how I could kind of reignite that inspiration towards success in our team. I also wanted teachers to feel confident in their ability to succeed. Even if things seemed really rocky at this point, I needed our team to believe that we could get through this. Some of the concrete goals I had as a part of this vision included a decrease in dean referrals, observable consistency across classrooms, for example, the use of systems like whole class points and the NNN steps. I also wanted to make sure we had strong team retention and satisfaction, again, keeping in mind the importance of that element of team on any teaching staff. Some of the steps that I took to address this concern were first, starting with some observations in 8th grade classrooms. As an 8th grade teacher, I obviously had my own perspective of what was happening and could name what I was seeing, but I needed to be in other classrooms to get a bigger picture of what was happening across the team. So I started by doing some observations, both by myself and by co-observing with our leadership team. During these observations, I was able to give some immediate feedback and kind of name in the moment some things that were going really well and things we needed to work on. Additionally, I spent an entire house meeting gathering input from our 8th grade team and really hearing and listening to the concerns people had, what they were seeing, and what they thought needed to change. I was also able to follow this up with some additional one-on-ones with team members who this seemed to be a particular concern for, to make sure I was really getting the full picture of what people were experiencing. At this point, I was also able to communicate with our leadership team to get additional support and insight from them on how we could tighten up our systems as an 8th grade team. During this time period, it was also really important that I continued to communicate to our team a true, deep belief in our capability. This came as simply as literally telling our team that I believed in our ability to succeed. And I think hearing that and being able to inspire that sense of belief in my fellow team members was really important for us actually taking the steps to resolve the problem. I was also able to provide a clear culture reset plan and materials for teachers to use in order to do this. We outlined a specific timeline as a team for when we were going to institute a culture reset. I was able to provide slides like the ones that you can see on here that all teachers use so that there was clear consistency across our grade level. And I was also able to talk through these things with students during a grade level morning meeting to make sure students saw how strongly aligned our teaching team was. I was also able to create some teacher-facing materials like NNN trackers to be able to support teachers less familiar with that system and being able to implement it effectively. Finally, I knew that it was important to close the loop as we address this situation and continue those observations. I've been able to maintain a bi-weekly cadence of observing 8th grade classrooms so that I have a really consistent and regular pulse on what's happening across our 8th grade team. Some of the outcomes that I saw as a result of this process were far more consistent expectations for students across classrooms, as well as a consistent use of the NNN ladder and cycle so that students knew they were going to be held to the same bar in every class. A few pieces of anecdotal data that I saw as a part of this process were calmer classroom environments. Upon walking in to do observations now, one of the first things I comment on to teachers is that their classroom is calm and focused. And that couldn't always be said when we first started to face this challenge, so that's been a huge source of improvement. Additionally, we've seen a decline in dean referrals over time as students have settled into the expectations of their classes. And additionally, we've seen greater student learning and cognitive engagement. We see this through different pieces of data such as our ANET testing and our iReady data that shows us our students really are learning in their classes. A few personal learning outcomes that I think are going to be really valuable to me in thinking about my role as a dean are the importance of having a clear culture vision up front and making sure that that's clear both at the whole school level but also on the smaller scale level of teaching teams specifically. I also got to see the importance of having clear team alignment up front. So not just having the vision, but making sure that a team is clear on how that vision will be implemented from the start of the year. I saw the importance of checking in and observing culture trends regularly. Had I not been able to do those observations and those one-on-one check-ins with teachers, I would have been missing a lot of information if I had been working off of my own experience alone. So I saw really that importance of gathering other people's input. I also saw the importance of having the foundations of a healthy team to have a high-performing team. During TLI, our 8th grade team had been able to establish some really strong trust through team building exercises that I think led us to be in a place to confront this challenge head on. When this happened, our team had a deep enough sense of trust that we were prepared to go into this together and really meet the challenge as a unified front. Had we not done that work up front, it would have been far more difficult to hit the ground running with this situation. Finally, I also learned the importance of having a clear plan for data tracking. As I mentioned on the previous slide, I do have quite a bit of anecdotal data for what happened in this situation, but I do wish, as I prepared this presentation, that I had had more concrete data and that I had set up better systems for data tracking in 8th grade right off the bat. I think all of the things that I learned and experienced as a part of this challenge are really going to serve me well as a dean, because these are things that deans are going to need to deal with every single day. I feel like I've been able to see the importance of clear visions up front and how to respond when things don't quite go as planned. I look forward to discussing this challenge presentation with you more and talking through more of what I think I've learned from this experience that has prepared me to be a dean of students.